Hey guys, Dev here with a sort of requested video. A lot of people over the years have asked how we edit our stuff. Now, Camera Lady is the main editor and she's never wanted to do this video. But she's gone for about a month and right now I'm doing the editing, so I figured, you know what, I'll do it. I'll put something out because I don't think she's ever going to. She showed me how she does it and I can show you how I do it. That being said, this tutorial will contain spoilers of the 9th episode of our Soul Silver Let's Play, so if you haven't seen that yet, you might not want to watch this video. We begin by opening up a template that Camera Lady has already prepared, and I'll show you the details of this template in a minute. But basically, whenever she goes to do anything, she already has templates set up, and I was very easily able to just kind of learn what these templates were all about and then use them the way she does. So right now this is After Effects file called SS9 for Soul Silver Episode 9. And as you can see, there's a number of elements along the bottom here. Now we have the MTS files, which is the footage from the camera that we record of Dave and I on the couch. And we have the image files of basically showing what route we're in and what Pokemon we've caught there. That goes directly behind us. Then we have the captured footage from the 3DS capture card, which is an AVI file. Now the reason there's two MTS files is because our camera doesn't actually record past 17 minutes, so it just starts a new file automatically. Now the files that are here already are actually from episode 8, and I'm just going to collect the files that are supposed to be in episode 9. So 101 and 102 were from episode 8, and then I'll just use the replace feature to put in files that are meant to be in episode 9. The same goes with the game footage. I'll replace the 4 AVI with AVI 5, which is the next episode's file. And there you go. After Effects automatically subs in the new files, and all I have to do is replace the images that go behind us, as well as adjust the total runtime of the project. Let me revert the camera footage back to its natural state, just so you can see what kind of stuff we do to it. So I'll just turn off all of these effects here. So here it is, how it should normally look. The mask on the footage is to cut out any parts of the wall that isn't green. So as you can see, there's a hallway over on the right side that there's no green there's no curtain or anything. So we just use a mask to cut it out. Additionally, we run the mask along the top and the right side of the footage and add a feather effect of about 5 pixels. What this does is when someone reaches off screen, it kind of blurs their arm so that instead of it just cutting off, there's a bit of a fade. Let me show you what happens when I put in a 25 pixel effect on the feather. As you can see, it gets a lot blurrier. But 5 is usually what we roll with. As for the effects, Keylight is what does the green screen. We set the screen color, which is the color that we want to be removing from the image. The biases are subcolors of that screen color that we want to keep in. So it's a related shade of green that we want to keep around, usually the green that's on the couch, because that couch has a little bit of faded green. We don't want that to be taken out, so we put that as a bias. The screen gain and the screen balance can change how much green you're picking up. It's usually, they're more of the hammer in the toolkit, and you only really want to use them if you can't solve the problem any other way. So I usually just leave them at 100 and at 50 respectively, but sometimes changing them a little bit can help. Clip black and clip white are basically functions that will kind of clip the edges of the green so that if there's stuff that's close to black, it'll be made black. If there's stuff that's close to white, it'll be made white. It basically allows you to fill in the gaps easily that might appear. The screen shrink and grow, the softness, all of those smaller numbers there, basically a combination of those is what allows me to put in a tiny outline around the green screen image. Without that, it looks very sharp and very jarring. Color balance is something that we sometimes use just to make it look a little bit better. Like, as you can see right now, the natural footage is very red because we filmed this at night and there was a lot of red ambient light. So, I mean, it's not perfect, color correction and color balance aren't ever ideal ways to deal with this problem, but sometimes you just have to roll with it. So these values are basically where you just change how much exposure each type of color has in your image, and hopefully you can get something that looks sort of neutral. It didn't quite work out here. It's pretty much the best that we could get it. Brightness and contrast can also sort of help this as well. I mean, it's not much of a change, but sometimes if you increase things like that, it can help out. The drop shadow happens at the very end, and that's basically putting a shadow around the green screen image. If you do this before anything else, it will actually green screen your mask instead of the green screened image, so that has to be last. As for the effects on the game footage, you'll notice that I have 3 different instances of the game footage there. Let me take off all the effects so I can show you. The first one is just the main screen. What I do is I put a mask over the top screen of the 3DS just to isolate it. Then I use corner pin, and corner pin is what allows me to stretch it out into that shape that is so common in our videos. You basically just grab the 4 corners and stretch it into any type of shape you like. And then finally, because 3DS footage is so low resolution and After Effects tends to blur it all together, you use a little bit of sharpen, which kind of defines a lot of the colors in the image. The second instance of the game footage is the exact same as the first, just for the lower screen. You do the same thing, you mask out the lower screen, you use corner pin on the lower screen to get it where you want it to go, and then you have your 2 screens. The third instance is that blurred background that you see behind everything. This is just a copy of the first instance with some minor changes done to it. The mask is still there, the effects are still there, but now there's a light burst effect, which causes it to have that blurred feeling. Without it, it just looks like an expanded version of the first instance. Additionally, the opacity is set to a lower level, just to make it look a little bit darker and make sure that the screen, the main screen itself, stands out. The final element is the image that's behind Dave and I, which is the status image of whatever Pokemon we've caught in this area. Basically, whoever's editing has to go through the footage frame at a time just to see where Dave walks into a new area and then put up another image. So as you can see, all throughout this footage, Dave's still in Violet City doing some shopping, so the image stays the same. But once we reach a new area, like say this route, I have to pinpoint the area in the timeline where he actually enters Route 32, and then find the Route 32 image in another folder, bring it into the project, and put it in place of the Violet City image. So that's a pretty good spot right there. So I close the Violet City image off right at that spot. Then I bring the Route 32 image into the project, put it in the timeline, and then give it the Violet City image's properties, like its location, its size, and so on. And every time that there's a route transition, I have to do this. Every time he walks into a cave or a town or whatever, I have to change this image. So at this point, I'm going to cut the recording and basically just go through the entire project and put in all of these images where they need to go. Here's what the project looks like after I've put all the images in. As you can see, there's 4 images: Violet City, then Dave goes to Route 32, then he goes back to Violet City, then he goes to Route 32 again. And that's the entirety of the 17-minute project. At this point, the only thing left is to render it. So, I drag in the project into the render queue, I put in the settings, and I let it go. We output an H.264 Blu-ray format at a bit rate of 11 megs a second. The reason behind that is because the main video itself goes out at 10 megs a second, and if you keep it one above, you can always at least ensure that level of quality will make it into the final product. Now I'm not actually going to start rendering it because it's going to take a while. I'm probably going to have to go away, go do something else for a couple hours and come back. So I'll just name it SS9A, I'll save it, and I'll come back after it's done. At this point the render's complete, but Episode 9 of Soul Silver has a daytime segment. In the episode we decided to call it for the night and come back later. Since the second half of the episode takes place during the day, that means a new filming session, which means new lighting conditions, the whole bit. So now I'm going to replace all of this footage with the footage from the daytime. Now take a look what happens when I replace the old camera footage from the previous night with the stuff from the morning. As you can see, it looks quite discolored. The reason for this is because of the differing lighting conditions. We no longer need to have that color correction in place, so it looks very strange to have it on. I'll just turn off all the settings again so we can see what it looks like naturally. As you can see, I can actually change the mask. Due to a difference in camera location, there is a little bit more leeway, so I can expand it outward. Turning on the keylight effects shows that the original color source for keylight still works out pretty good. The drop shadow effect is also still fine, as is the brightness and contrast effect. But the color balance is unnecessary. Filming during the day is usually a better option for us because it creates this more natural light. At night things are often a lot more red and it requires a lot more work. Additionally, this part is a bit longer and there are 3 other files to import. Along with 137 there's also 138, 139, and 140. Each of these files will go directly after the previous one, and I'll just copy and paste the masks, effects, and transform qualities onto these 3. One major problem with filming during the day though is that sometimes we forget to take down the mirror right behind the curtain. You can see it right here shining through. That creates a lot of interference in the green screen. We've gotten better at it now. We definitely take it down every time we film, but sometimes it just looks too bad and we have to use the mask to cut it out. Now I have to perform the same task as in the previous part. I have to put in all of those images behind Dave and I again. However, in this part we actually catch new Pokemon. That means that I'm going to have to open up the template and create a new image. Here's the template. There's 4 parts to it. The green background, the Pokeball, the New Barktown text, and the No Pokemon Yet text. So I'll just change New Barktown to read Route 32. I'll move it into position. Then what I do is I go to Select, Load Selection, then I'll expand it using Modify by, I don't know, 10 sounds good. Then I'll fill in all that extra area that's been expanded with blue. That gives it that Pokemon look. Then I'll go back to the text tool and change No Pokemon Yet to actually show what Pokemon we've encountered on that route and what happened to it. In this case it's a Mareep and we caught it. I leave that space in the text because that's usually where Dave's head goes. The last thing to do is to get an image of a Mareep and put it inside that Pokeball. Once it's complete, I save it in the Pokemon Info folder, which is where we keep all the images of this type for later use, and then I bring it back into After Effects for use in the project. At this point, the only thing left for me to do is to go throughout all 55 minutes of this part, frame by frame, and change out that image where appropriate. Sometimes I need to make new images, sometimes I just need to change them, and after that's done, then I'm going to render it again. Rendering the first part took about 6 hours. Rendering the second part took nearly a day. But once that's all done with, we go into Adobe Premiere Pro, and I open up the Pokemon template for Premiere. This is where the second stage of the editing comes into place. After Effects was just creating the raw file in Premiere Pro, this is where I actually cut it down. Now as you can see, the files from Soul Silver Part 8 are still in the template. Along the top here, within the timeline are all of these various images. First we have Graveyard, which is the word graveyard on the bottom right of the screen. Then we have Icon Active, which is the faded Pokeball, which is right beside the graveyard words. Then we have the trainer cards, which is basically the trainer card image that appears in the top left, and that changes throughout the video depending on if we get a badge, if we get a new Pokemon, if somebody dies, whatever. Then we have the sub, which is the word sub, the substitute, which is the actual substitute image, and the playlist, which is the playlist buttons. The dead Slugma appears on the graveyard, and anytime that we have another death, we just keep adding more and more tracks with more and more images for those dead Pokemon. Now these are done in Premiere because they don't actually interact with the rest of the video. The stuff that's done in After Effects all kind of go on top of each other and need to be rendered, and the green screen's involved, so I have to do them in After Effects. But the trainer card never actually goes over top of Dave or I. The graveyard never actually goes over top Dave or I, or even interacts with the game footage, it just sits in the corner. So because those elements aren't interacting with the parts of the video that require special effects software, I can just put them in as a simple overlay after the fact. At this point, it's time to get rid of the footage from Part 8 and start bringing in the stuff that we're going to use to make Part 9. So here's the 103 MTS, which contains video and audio from the raw source. Then I take the SS9A video that we just got from After Effects, I combine it with the audio from the camera, and that creates the whole file. The processed image plus the audio picked up from our shotgun mic attached to the camera. And now I do the same thing with the other files from the second half. At this point we have both halves of the episode linked up with the proper audio and ready to be edited. But before I get to editing, I'm going to show you a little bit about the opening. There's a file called GameDaveDev, which is basically just another template. So whenever Dave and I play a game together and like Alan's not around and Cabbage is not around or whoever, it's just Dave and I, we have a file just with our faces and the plus signs and the equal sign. And then in each individual video, we add the console icon and the game box art. That is an overlay that goes on top of this template. Now at this point, I watch all of this raw footage with the sound on, and I use the eraser tool to cut out any kind of pauses in conversation or conversations that are private and therefore shouldn't actually go into the video or whatever. Camera Lady can do it quite fast. She actually usually has it on fast forward while she does it because she can somehow keep up with that high-pitched sound that's generated. I can't do that. For a video this long with about an hour and 15 minutes of raw footage, I'll probably be here about 3 hours kind of figuring it out. If she was doing this, it might be an hour and a half, but she's been doing this for a lot longer. And I'm going to get started, and I'll get back to you once I've done all the cutting. Alright, that took just about forever. Here's the final product. As you can see, there was a lot of raw footage, right? But the video is what, 13 minutes long? That's because a lot of the stuff just couldn't go in. And as you can see, there are a lot of tiny parts. It's been cut apart. Now at this point, I need to start doing things like editing the trainer cards. There's a point in the video where Errol receives an egg. So I have to edit the trainer card to show that there's now an egg in the party. Just like everything else, there's a trainer card template. But usually I can just open up the newest trainer card and just add whatever I need on top of it because they're likely going to be very similar. We don't usually change out an entire team. So I just open up the old trainer card, put in the egg image, and then save it as trainer card 3, which is one ahead of trainer card 2, which was the previous trainer card used. Now I import trainer card 3, and I use the replace function to put trainer card 3 in this spot. So now, once we receive the egg, the trainer card should change to reflect the fact that there is now an egg in the party. I have to do the same thing here, where the egg gets removed from the party and we put somebody else in its place. Now for the transition between the night segment and the day segment of the episode, I decided to have the sound and image of the night segment fade out, play a sound effect from the Pokemon games, and then have the day image appear. But if we look at it, it looks a little bit empty with nothing there. So maybe I'll go into Photoshop and just kind of make a little title card and put it on top of that sound effect. There we go. Something simple, something black and white. Doesn't need to be amazing. I'm actually quite thankful that I'm able to do this on Camera Lady's computer while she was gone, because my computer would never be able to handle editing and screen capturing and voiceover all at the same time. She has a pretty beast computer, which is part of the reason why she can get this done so quickly. So now the sequence has the screen fade out, next day appear with the sound effect, and then the morning part of the episode begins. The last thing to really touch on is the ending card. It's, you guessed it, another template. This one's called Ending Blip, and this is where we have all the SFO media, and a blank area where we can add in clips from the latest videos that we've put out. I don't know exactly how Camera Lady handles this. I usually just choose the 3 previous episodes for whatever series have been uploaded recently. Now, I recall there being a pretty memorable moment in the most recent Banjo episode. So what I'll do is I'll use the razor tool to cut that moment out of the Banjo footage. Then I shrink it down to about half size and place it on top of the ending blip footage to make an ending card that you can then put YouTube annotations on top of and have clickable links to other episodes. I also go into the Effects tab in Premiere Pro and put in an edge feather of about 10 pixels. 10 is a pretty good looking number regarding how soft you want the edge to be. Now this larger clip has audio included so that there's something to listen to during the ending card, but the other 2 clips that I put in won't have audio, and they won't be set on any specific part of the video because they're half as small. They're 25% as small because they're half as small as the main clip. There's no audio in them. They just serve as links. And because they're half as small, if you want the feather to look right, you have to set the feather to 20 pixels. Because 10 pixels at half the size will look like 5 pixels. So you set it to 20, so it looks like 10, and then everything looks uniform when the final project is done. So at this point, the ending card is done, all the pieces are in the proper place, and it's time to actually export the file. You click on Export Media, and here's the part where you can put in all the various settings for the quality of the file and all of that. This video will be called Part 9, Day-Night Cycle. I save it in the Soul Silver folder. I make sure the bitrate's the same, yep, it's still 10. Everything else is already set from before, which is great. And then I output it into Adobe Media Encoder, which will then handle spitting the final file out that you guys will see. Now, we render these files twice. The first one is for YouTube, and the second one is for Blip. There are differences between them. For the Blip files, we take out the sub buttons and the playlist buttons because Blip doesn't have an annotation system. So we take those out, and then to fill the extra space, we make the trainer cards slightly bigger, 25% bigger, and then we move them over 50 pixels. And that puts them in just the right space at just the right size so that it doesn't look like there's a gap where the sub button used to be. And the last thing we do for the Blip copy is we put in a small line that says new videos daily, and it goes right below the 2 smaller videos in the ending card. This is mainly just to fill the space because, like I said before, Blip doesn't have an annotation system, and that's where the annotation title would usually go. So now we just have a new videos daily line down there. So I saved the project as Pokemon LP Blip instead of Pokemon LP YouTube. I go to export it again. Exact same settings, I just changed the name to Part 9 Blip. I just noticed after the fact that I didn't really go into what final output settings we use, but the truth of it is it's not really that important. It's H.264 Blu-ray again, square pixels, 1920 by 1080 resolution, 10 megabits per second. Very simple stuff. I don't really mess around too deeply in the settings. Camera Lady would know more about that stuff than I would, but I just make sure that the quality is high enough that it still sounds good and looks good, but at the same time we don't want to go over 1.5 gigs because that's Blip TV's upload limit. Anyway, that's how we make videos. I'm not as good at it as she is. I straight up admit that. I have learned what little that I know from her. All of these templates and all of these graphics and stuff are entirely from her. I'm just kind of working off of what she's done while she's gone. And I mean, she's gonna take back over after she gets back. She can do this kind of stuff about 4 times as fast as I can. But the positive part about her going away is that this video probably would have never been made unless somebody else over here learned how to edit at least a little bit and showed you guys how to do it, because she wasn't going to do this. There was no way she was going to set this up on her own. Anyway, I hope this helps some of you guys. Stay tuned to the channel. We've got more stuff coming out in the weeks and months ahead. So just hit that sub button and keep watching. Goodbye.